Let me start by introducing our guests today, Vicki Reeder and Gary Landis. Vicki grew up in Puyallup, Washington.
UL, UL.
Okay, near Tacoma. She got a taste for the bright lights of the stage in a kindergarten-age dance class. She met her future husband, Dave, in junior high and married him 7 years later. Vicki and Dave moved to Mountain View, California, where Dave had his first job. Vicki holds a BA in Fine Arts from Washington State University. Subscriber to the First Theater and the Bus Barn Theater, Los Altos Conservatory Theater. Vicki joined their board in the late 1980s. She helped establish a new theater in 1994-95 and is still president. She continues to produce, write, direct, and perform in the Follies, a music parody fundraiser for the stage company. She has announced she is retiring from producing and directing any future Follies or other fundraising performances and is stepping down as LASC board president next July, but plans to actively pursue the new theater project. Gary Landis, over a nearly four-decade career in the arts, Gary has been an actor, director, designer, stage manager, stagehand, art marketer, and fundraising professional. His life in the theater began at an early age, acting in the Los Altos-based youth theater, and then continued to deepen throughout high school and college in Southern California to include directing and stage design. Gary holds a bachelor's degree in theater arts from California State University, Northridge, a master's degree in theater history, theory, and criticism, and from the University of Pittsburgh, and a master's degree in the arts management from Carnegie Mellon University. Gary joined the Los Altos Stage Company in 2012, bringing with him 25 years of arts management experience with organizations large and small across a variety of disciplines, theater, music, visual arts. He worked in regional theater in Washington, D.C., arena stage, and educational theater in New York City, creative arts team, before moving to the Bay Area in 1998. Locally, he has worked in performing arts in San Francisco, Theater Artaud, and Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, and prior to returning to the theater in Los Altos and visual arts in both San Francisco and San Jose, Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco, De Young Museum, and San Jose Museum of Art. Over the past 13 years at Los Altos Stage Company, Gary has intimately been involved in all aspects of the theater's more than 75 productions, including directing, acting, scene building, scenic design, sound design, projection design, and lighting design. His work has been recognized with a Bay Area Award for Artistic Excellence and a San Francisco Bay Area Theater Critics Circle Award. During the closure of the theater because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Gary led the theater's efforts to create new artistic programming online. The San Francisco Bay Area Theater Critics Circle recognized the efforts with a certificate of commendation for distinguished online work during the pandemic. We're thrilled to have Gary and Vicki from the Los Altos Stage Company with us here today. Thank you both for spending some time with us this morning. We're going to start off with a presentation and wrap up with audience Q&A. Vicki, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Kim. Just a few brief thoughts as we get started. This is the 30th season for Los Altos Stage Company. That's 30 years of producing live theater here. But we weren't the first theater in that metal Butler building over behind the History Museum. It's been there as a theater for about 48 years by my count. It was put there by a group of volunteers and a professor from Foothill College who got the city to agree to a 6-month trial. And that trial is, I guess, still going on. We enjoy being afforded a city relationship with the city of Los Altos all those years. And the inside of the current theater, such as it is, was built by volunteers who we've now replaced most of the equipment in there, but it was all done as a volunteer private effort with permission of the city. It's my pleasure to reintroduce Gary Landis. Having Gary be part of leading the Los Altos Stage Company has been a huge lift up of our products and our support in the community. So Gary's going to start the slideshow that we have for you.
Great, everyone. Thank you for being here and allowing us to talk to you about the opportunity for a new theater for Los Altos. Today we're going to go over a number of things for you. We're going to start with going over the kind of vision that we have for a new theater for Los Altos, and then talk to you about how this new theater project kind of got started, the recommendations that Our first set of consultants gave us around the feasibility of building a theater downtown, the interim phases that happened in relationship with the city, the next phase about the capital campaign feasibility consultants and their findings, and then finally the next steps that are coming before us over the next few months and hopefully over the next few years. So I'm going to kick off with the vision for the future. So primarily, we envision a future where we build a new performing arts building in downtown Los Altos for all Los Altos residents. That this building with modern amenities will significantly enhance the experience for audiences and performers alike. But it will be more than just a theater building. It will be a cultural hub, a community gathering space that fosters a love for the arts and offers enriching experiences that extend beyond the stage. So the areas that we see as the primary goals of the building is that it, one, will be a community hub for arts and culture. That with this building, we will be able to engage more people in more ways. The new theater will not just be a space for theater productions, but also for educational workshops, for community events, for arts exhibitions, and that it'll position the Los Altos stage and the Los Altos Youth Theater as key cultural institutions in the area. This new building will be able to host a wider variety of programs than currently are offered in the Bus Barn Theater, like lectures, movie screenings, concerts, and more that bring the community together. And with indoor and outdoor facilities, it will be an attractive year-round gathering space for Los Altos and community members beyond. It will increase civic pride and benefit local businesses. This new theater will become a destination and a source of civic pride that attracts broader segments of the community to participate and increases foot traffic in the downtown area. It'll create a seamless experience for theatergoers to go to local businesses, restaurants, and bars before and after performances. And people will be able to host their family and their friends. Altos experience centered around culture, art, and a vibrant downtown area. Next, it'll increase the capacity, versatility, and utilization of a cultural arts building in Los Altos. This larger venue with increased capacity will allow us and our partners to host larger productions and accommodate more audience members. This more versatile performance space will be able to be adapted for different types of performances and events, expanding the range of cultural and artistic and community offerings provided. Next, it will elevate our and the community's focus on Los Altos youth. We will place youth at the center of the building's programming and operations. With more space and a new complex, we will be able to provide expanded and improved educational programs, benefiting local youth and aspiring young artists, and fostering a deeper engagement with the arts in our local youth community. And lastly, this new building will provide for greater sustainability and greater financial viability of the cultural arts in Los Altos. A modern, comfortable, energy efficient, and attractive theater will draw larger audiences and more diverse productions. It'll increase ticket sales and potential revenue streams, providing economies of scale that make Los Altos Stage Company and our partners more sustainable organizations. It will also benefit the community outside of our performances, since people will have to park and go to the theater and then dinner or a bar downtown and reduce unnecessary trips and traffic. So that is the overall vision around the downtown building. And I pass it off to Vicki, who is going to talk about how this project all got started.
Do you forward? Yeah, thank you. Well, there's been talk about new theaters in Los Altos for a very long time, and I've been a part of many of those conversations. Many of them were related to all the attempts to build a new community center that failed before we finally have one that succeeded, and how proud we all are now to have that wonderful facility. You probably are aware that, I mean, I'm not going to talk about, there have been presentations in 2012 and 2014 and other times to the council. How about doing this? How about having a theater that could be a live theater downtown with movies shown, et cetera? But I'm going to start in 2017 when that city council hired consultants to help them create a downtown vision, which was, I participated in, I'm sure many of you did. It was a lot of talking and good ideas, and then those consultants made a presentation to that city council, and they adopted that vision. And in it were proposals that a theater downtown would be the best use, would provide the most attraction. In other words, more feet would be on the street, as Gary explained, than if you put in another hotel or condos. It would just be a place where more and more people would go in and out, and as Gary suggested, use the downtown in other ways. So that happened, and that was exciting. But then when Nisa Flygore was mayor in about 2021 or so, she contacted me and asked Los Altos Stage to be the driver of a citizens group called the New Theater Working Group. So we did. I advertised in the town crier, and people responded to me. Sandesh Muli, who's on this call, is one of the people who responded and has been part of the New Theater Working Group. And I hope I'm not leaving anybody else out that's on this call. So we met. We had the consultants who did the downtown vision spoke with us. We talked to lots of arts organizations in other communities and how they've done things. And finally, when we presented those findings to the city, we agreed to hire a small business consulting firm from Sacramento called AMS Research to do a feasibility study built around what we were looking for to, as Gary mentioned, all the things we want to have be part of a future structure. If you've been to the Bus Barn Theater, you don't have to hear me explain its limitations. You can see for yourself that there's no lobby. There's the restrooms are for the playing fields, and they look like playing field restrooms when you're in them. Everything about that building, which was originally put there by the school district when they owned that land long ago, was a parking garage for some buses. So it's inadequate in many ways, and it's astonishing to me that it's held up and served our community as well as it has for almost 50 years. So we did consult with AMS, and we raised some money. The city put some money in, and Packard Foundation put some money in to pay the consulting fees. You can see on these bullet points the kinds of things that we asked them to find out. How big should it be? What should be included? How much will it cost? And as you probably know, so this was done 2 years ago, and then the estimate was 24 million with a $1 million escalation, considering how long it will take to get from idea to an actual structure. And we presented that proposal to the city last year. Maybe 2 years ago, I'm not sure. Anyway, and we came up with a memorandum of understanding that they would reserve Parking Plaza 2, which is the parking plaza between 2nd and 3rd and Main and Whitney, I guess. It's near the Charles Schwab building, and it's behind the entrance to the post office. That's Parking Plaza 2. And that's how it got started. And then we moved on from there. I think Gary's going to talk now about what AMS is, the details of what they proposed to us.
Yeah, so we can go to the next slide. Okay. So research. So we hired AMS Planning and Research, and we conducted about a 9-month process. AMS Planning and Research was contracted to do a 2-phase feasibility study. The first phase of it was assessing feasibility, to look at supply, demand, and aspirations, and to also look at Los Altos Stage as an organization to determine whether or not it was feasible for this organization to be involved in this project. Phase two was setting the definition to create an operational model, a building description, and a summary financial forecast of what it would take in order to make those things happen. So during phase one, they really focused on seeking to understand us as an organization, Los Altos Stage Company. So they analyzed our operational data going back to 2012 and up to, since this whole project started just after the pandemic, which obviously the pandemic threw everybody's numbers into kind of a chaotic stance. They really looked at the operating model from 2012 to 2019. And what they saw was that consistency, that we had steady and measured growth, both in our revenues and expenses, and also within our audience. From that, they made the assumption that it indicated that we had a solid management and oversight, and that the programming was meeting the community's interests and perception in the community of the value of the organization. They also analyzed the market area and zeroed in on a collection of 15 zip codes that they believed comprised our primary kind of theater performing arts market. And they found that this primary market, as you can probably assume, it is very strong with high inclination and high resources to support performing arts in the region. They also looked at our current database of subscribers and donors and found that it's formed a strong basis from which to build forward both audiences and supporters for such a project. Next, they conducted both community interviews and community surveys to do an assessment of the community's perception, both of the organization and of the possibility of building a new performing arts building in downtown. These surveys and interviews found in the majority that there is a significant interest for a performing arts organization in downtown, with a specific really strong interest for providing grading training opportunities for the young people of Los Altos. Overall, the respondents in the majority found that a new building in downtown would enhance downtown as a cultural and an economic hub and activity, and that it would bring a greater sense of community pride to Los Altos. They had said that their major takeaway from the data is that people see this project as a community resource for the residents of Los Altos more than they see it as a building that is attracting a regional destination. After they did these assessments, they really went into the next phase, which talks about a programmatic model with a new building and with the number of days in operation. They were able to devise a program where they projected that such a building could handle an annual attendance of just over 20,000 patrons, and that within that building, in its multi-use configuration, that the building could handle about 725 unique activities over the year, and that these activities could and should include community events, concerts, lectures, films, comedy and family performances, rental uses, Los Altos Stage and Los Altos Youth performances, classes and summer camps for young people, and rehearsals. Working with their partner, Schuler, who are theater designers, as far as designing the space needs for potential theaters, they concluded that to handle such activities, a building of approximately 160, though flexibility to increase seating beyond that is considered, and that the configuration of the building should be in a traditional proscenium style stage that could be closed off in order to handle both behind curtain and in front of curtain events. Theaters require ample backstage space and room for gathering in the front of house, and that this building would also include suitably sized lobby, outdoor patio space, a special lounge space dedicated to youth, storage, dressing rooms, and other essential support services. And that in order to accommodate all of this, the footprint would need to be between 13,000 and 14,000 square feet. To accomplish this, which the parking plaza site that the city had indicated does do, and not surprisingly, that the current footprint that the Bus Barn Theater site occupies is not large enough to accommodate. In their analysis, they found that on this 13 to 14,000 square feet footprint, the building facility would be approximately 23,000 square feet when grossed up. Grossed up means taking in consideration of walls, electrics, venting, all additional things, would be about 23,000 square feet. And that in their analysis of projects to date when they did it, that a determination of $1,000 per square foot would cover both the hard and soft costs, putting the building at between 23 and 24 million with an escalation of $1 million. I think that is the other thing that they did do after the building was put forward an overview of an operating budget for the organization for such a building. They determined that they projected that there would be a 5-year period between the start of the campaign and the opening of the building, and that the organization, as its current budget just over 600,000 over the 5 years to the opening of the building, would need to increase its budget to about $1 million, so a little under $400,000 increase in budget. And then over the 5-year operating period, that the organization would increase its operations from the $1 million budget to $1.4 million over that 5-year first operating period, getting to a base operating in year 4 of around $1.4 million. And I think Vicki's going to talk to you about what happened after that study.
Yeah, yes, I am going to tell you about that. So we did, we had a successful experience with AMS, and the principal came with us to make our presentation to the council. And as I mentioned earlier, the memorandum of understanding was adopted while it was part of the proposal was that a second feasibility study was required to look at the financial capacity of the community and the interest in being involved in such a project. So we then went on a search for a different kind of consulting firm, and we're very fortunate to become acquainted with Building Blocks Consulting in San Francisco, who primarily focus in arts projects. And we hired them a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, and again, a small firm with a wonderful leader, Nate Levine, and they dove into looking into who comes to our theater. They have, because of their kind of business, they have a lot of search tools to look at people's giving into other arts organizations, and we built up a list for them of over 200 local people we thought that should be interested in this, and they went through those steps of assessing the capacity of people in Los Altos and Los Altos Hills and Mountain View, that area, and reported back to us this last June after a lot of meetings and they did 20 in-depth interviews with identified possible supporters. And I think the next slide talks a little bit more about that. But the bottom line of our work with Building Blocks, and we had to, again, raise another 60-some thousand dollars in funds to pay for the cost of hiring this firm, which we did without any support from the city. And but we felt very positive about our work with Building Blocks, and we are on schedule now to report their findings and make a request to the city, and that's going to happen at the regular city council meeting on November 12th. So I think
the next slide is the summary.
Yeah, go ahead to the next slide, Joe. Right. So there's some things I just told you. I'm not going to read this all to you, but the thing that was most interesting was the people that they talked to, the local people, was that no one raised their hand and said, I would love to give you $5 million and here's my check. But that without such a could be a person, it could be a foundation, it could be an organization, it could be a governmental body. That we have without that, our ability to raise funds to build a new theater it's a much bigger lift. And you can see that they thought that if we didn't have a lead gift or several lead gifts for the first 5 million, that it would be a huge challenge to somehow get the community to come up with the $25 million total cost. And one of the things that Nate said to us over and over again is the first question prospective donors ask is, who else is doing it? That's what they want to know. And so that's a compelling reason to have a strong, large gift. So, and to get those kind of gifts, we really feel we have to have a capital campaign manager. It cannot be. We have a board of 10, and Gary has a staff of 3. And we do amazing work with those limitations. But we know we need to have someone who has the specific skills to do outreach to our community. The thing they said to us was that it takes about 3 visits. You can't just visit a person and then they'll just jump up and down and grab call their donor advice fund or whatever. You need to have enough people making enough outreach that you are visiting. I think they said like a couple hundred times altogether to cultivate these gifts. So, and the building blocks looked at us and said, we think you need to engage more deeply with your city. And so over this summer, we have been meeting both with our city manager and with Anthony Corniseca, and also with all our city council members individually, and discussing the findings of the building block study. So they're prepared when we come before them in November to know what we did and how we did it and what we need from them now. I don't know if you have anything to add, Gary, but I think that's
Sure. I mean, it just kind of summarizes kind of the areas that you talked about. Building blocks look both at us organizationally within our current system and our capacity in order to engage in a capital campaign. And then second, looked at the community resources that have a connection to us and their interest in capacity in order to support such a project. On the organization, they found that the organization had the motivation and the experience and the leadership in order to undertake such a campaign, but needed to increase its human resources, its staff, and its board members in order to tackle a campaign, which will become a dominant activity of the organization if it goes forward. In addition to increasing the board and increasing the board training, it really identified with such a campaign the need to bring on a professional, full-time, experienced fundraising professional to manage the campaign and to guide the existing staff and board members in order to implement the campaign. So that was one. 2, in its interviews with the community and community donors, it does an interview and then it basically uses its experience and its ranking in order to create a probability table. And what it found in the interviews that it conducted with the people with their interest and resources that it spoke to, it felt that there was a solid probability to raise between $9 and $12 million to support this project from that community of donors and stakeholders that it talked to. It admitted that within that community, it was not able to talk to and engage with the lead and the leadership donors that could give gifts between $2.5 and $5 million. And it felt that with an increased focus specifically at the beginning of the campaign on people who could support it at the $2.5 to $5 million, that we could increase our likelihood and probability of reaching that original total goal of $25 million. But that the first year of a capital campaign would need to solely focus on the building the relationships and securing the pledges from the small group of people that would comprise those numbers. So I think that's what they said. And so then we go on to the next steps. This is the next slide. So, so the next steps, as Vicki said, are the first one is that we are meeting with and doing a presentation to the City Council in November, where we'll present the findings from the building block study, as well as kind of remind and bring back up to speed City Council members and other stakeholders about how we got to where we are, and also to make an ask to the city for continued support for the project and for clear definition of the city's role within that project. That we as an organization are going to continue to build our board of directors to its maximum size, which we are currently doing. That after the meeting in November, hopefully with the city's guidance and support, that we will look to be hiring a full-time capital campaign. Here it says consultant, but they'll come on full-time, so they actually will be the kind of capital campaign manager, director for the program. They will focus specifically on this. While they'll be working with us, they won't be focusing on fundraising for our operations. They'll be focusing solely on fundraising for the capital campaign. That we will ask the city to extend the current MOU for the site for the performing arts building. If we get the support of the City Council, we anticipate that the capital campaign then, after the hiring of the director, will take at minimum of 2 years to complete. So actually between 24 and 36 months to complete. That the first year would focus solely on quiet phase of the campaign, which will be on the generating the relationships and solicitations of the leadership pledges for the building, the 2.5 million and above. That at the as the campaign progresses, we will be able to then be developing a timeline as far as breaking ground, but anticipating with hope that the breaking of the ground and the continuation of the campaign will be somewhere around 3 to 4 years from the start of the campaign. And that, as I spoke about in the AMS study, that we have both a goal to be increasing the organization's resources over the 5 years of the capital campaign and building of the building from just over $600,000 to $1 million by the opening of the building, and that over the first 5 years of the operation of the building, increasing the organization's budget from 1 million to 1.4 million. That's what we have.
I'd just like to, before we open for questions, I went back and looked through all the appendices that Building Blocks provided us, which was a series of the actual quotes of the people that they spoke with. And this one, I just wanted to see if I could pull out something inspirational. And this is what one person said. The arts expand our minds and perspectives. Art lands in our consciousness in different ways than education and communication. It can have a very different impact than just reading an article. People can get provincial in a town like this and live in a bubble. The arts are a way of opening your mind and seeing things in a different way for both kids and adults. So that's my little sermonette, and we're ready for questions.
Great. Well, thank you, Vicki and Gary, very much for the informative presentation. I have just a few questions, and we'll open it up for questions from the audience. First, to what extent do you anticipate projected construction costs are likely to increase over time in the 2 to 3 or 4 years before you begin construction? And what additional funds do you anticipate having to raise to meet those increased costs, or is that already factored into the budget?
Sounds like a Gary question.
I knew you'd say that. So there is an escalation included in the original budget. Obviously, the changes in those costs are not always known. I think once we enter the project and we start dealing with architectural and engineering designs of it and get more specific on the actual costs of the building, we'll be better able to project what an escalation over a period is, and then we'll have to revise and put that into the campaign itself.
Great, thank you. And how will the expense of maintaining the new theater be covered? People have been concerned about the city's capacity to maintain things like parking plazas, city hall, et cetera. How will that be dealt with for the new theater?
So the the operational agreement between the organization and the city is still something that's going to have to be worked out over the course of the project. The envisioning for the project is that the public-private partnership would raise the funds to build the building, that the city's land is the city's land, that the building itself would be gifted to the city to be a city facility um, for the city and not owned by a private nonprofit, that the nonprofit would be responsible for raising funds through earned income and through contributed income in order to support the programming and operations of the building. And then through the operation agreement, we'll have to see what aspects of the building fall within the not-for-profit and what aspects of the building fall within the city as far as maintenance and upkeep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just add to that that the city of Los Altos has been supporting the stage company for 48 years by having us occupy a city property. And we've all those years they have helped us maintain it. And when things break, they get fixed. And in much the same way that the History Museum was a nonprofit that was built with private funds and then donated back to the city. It's very much the same model that we will be studying.
Great, thank you. And finally, to what extent, if any, will advancing a theater project compete for private and or public financing with other possible projects such as a new expanded library, housing, park and parking proposal for plazas 1 and half of 2, and updated police station and firehouse roofs? And to what extent might advancing a theater project actually complement or help finance those other projects?
Well, I think those are all great things that we want for our community. And you can look at it as, oh, no, I want that money over here. I mean, you can't really compare the needs of the police station with a project like a public-private partnership on a city parking. I mean, would be a different pot of funds that could be used. It's part of what we have. I think all of you people know about park and lieu fees, and that they can be used for parks and structures in that way. But that doesn't apply to something like the police station. But I think in some ways it's we're just farther along. I mean, although I think there's a desire in all the groups that support all those other things you named off, from the police station to the library. And the library is complicated because it's a county library on city land, and that's just another level of complication. But we've been working on this for about 5 years, and so I think we're just farther forward. We've done the studies, we're ready to move ahead. And quite frankly, I think that we can be the model of how this works. And I think it could be an encouragement to the other organizations who are struggling to, and getting pushback, no, the library wants this. No, the orchard needs that piece of dirt or whatever, So I think it's exciting that we are the first to try to accomplish this structure of this scale and this, but I think it'll be, an exciting and successful opportunity. And Gary probably has some thoughts too.
Oh, no, I was thinking about this morning, and we've had conversations around this topic for a number of years. And it reminds me that at the city council meeting where we presented the AMS study and moving forward, that council members did express when that question was put forward to them a feeling like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We are a community that has the resources, both intellectual and financial resources, such that we can have it all. That it's not an issue of resources, it's an issue of will, vision, and will. And so the pursuing of these projects, and hopefully it's the successful completions of this project, can engage the community more thoroughly in a vision of community giving, of community resource, of building the space in which we all reside together. So it can have complementary effects on the library project, on the issues around the interests around the museum. It really is about what does the community want Los Altos to be moving forward for its current residents and its future residents, and does it see itself? How does it view itself as a community, as a great community? And the truism is that great communities are looked at so by the type of cultural and civic institutions that it cultivates. The police is incredibly important, but history doesn't look back on societies and measure them by the greatness of their police station. It measures them by the greatness of their civic and cultural institutions.
Great, thank you. Thank you again very much for the wonderful presentation. I'd like to now open it up to attendees for questions. If you have a question, please raise your virtual hand. I'll call on you. Remember, one question per person and no speeches, please. Looks like you've answered every question everybody could have. I don't see any virtual hands going up there.
Time to go.
Interesting.
Sorry about that.
Nope. Wow, that's I think maybe a first here, and it speaks to what a thorough presentation. Oh, there I see one from Joe. Joe, what's your question?
Just because nobody else is asking, so I thank you for the details. And I should have mentioned earlier, I'm speaking as a resident, not as a planning commissioner. But has there been anybody who's stepped forward and sort of expressed like, I would like to be the founding, investor in this project, and perhaps, it's named the John Smith or Sally Smith, community theater. You don't have to say who it is, but getting that first person, would really help. And related to that, is there a fundraising person identified who can go raise all of this money? Thank you.
Well, no, that's where we are. I mean, I think we know who lives here. Unfortunately, Steve Finn, who was the person who gave $7 million to the Community School of Music and Art about 20 years ago. I mean, we are looking for anybody who knows him who would like to introduce us, and anyone else who you might think of that might have that kind of capacity. We know they live among us, and it's very exciting that they're here. But and regarding the capital campaign consultant, we have some leads. Gary's background when he worked at the de Young Museum with a lot of the moneyed people of San Francisco, I think is going to come in very handy as we pursue a consultant. Gary may have other thoughts.
Well, and that's in the next steps. The who could be leadership gifts. The original pool of prospects have been identified. And now it's going to be a step of conversation and cultivation, both with them and with expanding that pool of possibilities. Again, the capital campaign consultants' possibilities have been identified, but until we have the meeting with the city council and get the hopefully the positive affirmation from the city council to move forward with the project and the clear definition of the city's participation and role in the project, we can't commit the resources in order to bring on the capital campaign director for that. And then, as we said in the presentation, once that person comes on, their primary task over the next 12 to 18 months is first working with the list of prospects that we have been able to develop with building blocks and expanding that list of prospects and working with the board and staff in order to start the cultivation and hopefully potentially solicitation process with those donors, which will include, but this is obviously a city building and a partnership with the city that will have to work out an agreement with those type of issues around naming, recognition, different things that we have to kind of consider. This is not a project solely of the nonprofit kind of, here's what we want and we can go forward. This is a partnership project with the city, so that the city council and the city staff will definitely have a say and input into kind of how such a capital campaign can kind of move forward and what things can be promised to potential donors.
Thank you. And Kim,
I do want to add that the city, if you've ever looked in the city, I don't know what you call it, there are the rules and regulations that our naming policy is very weird. And Jonathan, I hope you'll look at it sometime and see what you think.
And
Great.
Kim, just so you're aware, I think Penny had her real hand raised after Larry, in case you didn't see it. Just wanted to let you know.
I saw that. Thank you, Joe. And Joe, there's still a chance for you to get your name up on that new building. Larry and then
graffiti
Penny
is illegal in Los Altos, Kim. Sorry.
Okay, Larry and then Penny and then Liz.
Yeah, and I heard some dates there before in your conversation, how long this will take. I guess the question would be, what do you think the window you need is to find that cornerstone donor to give sort of good confidence that a project could go forward, right? The reason I ask the question is on the city side of the land use there, it feels like a lot of the questions about what to do with the parking plazas are moving from the sort of one day to the, soon, at least soon in terms of city time. And so sort of it seems like in addition to money, now there's sort of a race against time because clearly the city is going to be supportive, but if there's not a way to make the dream come true, the decision's still got to get made on the city side. So any thought about how to compare those windows and how much patience is required? And hopefully you get the sense of the question.
Yeah, the looking at the leadership, I mean, the leadership gifts, and it is a bundle of gifts overall, within the project. With everyone who's dealt with fundraising, especially capital campaigns, the pyramid structure of the campaign.
Right.
Dealing with that top part of the pyramid is the first kind of 12 to 18 months goal. Dealing with that first leadership gift, it is really within the kind of first 6 months of the campaign. That first one that is going to then trigger the others to do it, because the reality of capital campaigns and the reality of development is the majority of givers want to give to something that other people have already started giving to, and the majority of leadership gifts want to know who is involved and invested in it before they become invested in it. So that first gift dollars is going to be the primary focus of the first 6 months of the campaign, and locking that down with the hope, and from other campaigns it has borne this out, that first gift does loosen the kind of pipeline for the other gifts. It starts to trigger. So hopefully that first gift is going to take a lot of work to get done. And then the hope is that first gift will then allow the next 6 months to be able to rein in the rest of that top leadership, kind of top part of the pyramid.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the mechanics of the fundraising. Do you look for seed money so that you can get started and get the architect on board and get things designed, or do you wait until you have all of it to even start?
Yeah. So the first thing that we'll have to secure the money for is to bring on the capital campaign director. So that's not in in the scope of the entire project. That is not a large amount, but it is a significant amount in order to have them. We can't kind of have a little bit of it and promise them that we'll figure it out as we go along.
Yeah.
So to have that money for at least 2 years of contracting that person in it, and to get that campaign rolling, and that first phase, that leadership phase of the project, and those pledges coming in, that at the conclusion of that phase, that then we'll work with that leadership circle of donors and the city then to engage in the our architect and the engineering and the other specifics of it. So it's first the leadership gifts, or a portion of the leadership gifts, and understanding commitment from those donors that a portion of their gift will be used in order to bring that project to the documents kind of to reality, to move forward with the rest. So that would require that the leadership gifts, and many of the gifts will just be pledges that will only go forward if the building's going forward, though a portion of the leadership gifts will have to be negotiated so that they will be accessible to deal with architectural and engineering costs up front.
And that's not included in the 25 million.
No, that's part of it. That is included in it, but as far as kind of process,
Okay.
the majority of gifts won't be accessed, will only be pledged. It wouldn't be accessed until the project is a go, and so costs are starting to do. But a portion of the leadership gifts would have to be accessed. The leadership pledges would have to be accessed earlier to cover the architectural and engineering and development costs.
Thanks, Gary.
Great. Liz, we have time for one last question. You have to unmute yourself.
I have one, you guys.
I do too. Unmuted.
Okay.
So sorry, Krista. This is all predicated, I assume, on the fact that the city will approve Plaza 1 and 2 going forward. If that's not approved, then do you have any hope of building a theater? And I think a lot of the difficulty then would be to get the parking, which will be very expensive if it's underground.
Right. I think it's kind of next steps are next steps. Yes, we do have to take the next step about engaging with the city and getting a determination from the city about its interest in moving forward. The whole project was initiated and begun from the city's interest in building a performing arts building in the downtown area. Both its own planning and then its engagement with us was coming to us about whether or not we would be interested in forming a partnership with them in order to try to make this part of their plan possible. If they determine, after all is said and done, that they don't want to move forward with that part of their plan, then us as an organization, we have to regroup with the information we have and make the determinations about what the next phases would be. But right now, we're not building a contingency that says, if this doesn't happen, we'll move in this direction. That'll happen after we collect and know the position of the city and the city council.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that in all our interactions with several city councils, they have encouraged us to continue. They have not said, this is crazy, forget about it. They've said, keep going. And they've given us every indication that they are not, it's not just a pipe dream, that they want to put a park downtown, and they want to actually implement the downtown vision of 2018. Sounds to me like they're very interested in making those goals a reality. And so that's encouraging. But as Gary said, we've certainly considered there might be a plan C, but we don't know what that will be.
Great. Vicki, Gary, we're out of time. Can you stay for another minute or two to answer one more question?
Yes.
Great. And before everybody has to go, if anybody has to go right now, let me make a few announcements. Our next meeting will be Friday, October I think this is wrong here. I think it's the November 1st, 8:30, 9:30. Please join us for a discussion entitled Introducing Los Altos Police Chief Saskia Lagergren. If you'd like to be added to the LACC mailing list, please send an email to info@losaltoscommunitycoalition.org. I think that email is in the chat for you. And a big thank you to the Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation providing LACC with financial and in-kind support. Do you want to go ahead with your question, Krista?
You know what? It was just a quick comment. We have designated funds that we've set up, and that's really what a community foundation, what's one of our strongest arms. And you all, a lot of you in this group know that this particular city council is very supportive of public-private partnerships. But I would say from our own experience of having funds, you can think back to Splash and Legacies as a community foundation. Sometimes you have the city and sometimes you have the funding, but you also have to have the neighborhood buy-in and where it's going. And you can also kind of have seen that with the dog park. So my question, it was sort of along the lines of Liz's, whereas this three parts. So we have a city council who's very pro public-private partnerships. We have a community foundation that says, hey, let us help you and we'll open a designated fund and let us help you. We're supportive of this effort. But I want to also feel like we can figure out maybe within this group too on making sure that the NIMBY kind of conflicts that can come up in these situations, that we're really being able to get in front of it. That was all.
I don't think there was a question in there, Krista, but I do want to compliment the Community Foundation. From day one, they have been behind the stage company. And of course, you all remember that Roy was very instrumental in securing opening the funds for us to get started when we switched, when Los Altos Conservatory Theater was closed down because they were in debt, and that the city stepped up at Roy's urging and my husband's urging and Penny's urging, and provided us with the ability to restructure a new theater and keep us in business.
Thank you. Yeah,
and off
thank
of
you for saying that.
off of what Krista said, in raising the funds for the studies, which the studies cost around $150,000 total to do. So there was a number of individuals, and including organizations and including the city who supported, provided funds in order to support those studies. We did begin a fund at the Community Foundation for the new theater, which right now just has the residual few $1,000s left in it that was from the study. So that fund is already established, and we do anticipate partnering with the Community Foundation and sustaining that fund and working with the Community Foundation to be the repository of the pledge payments for this project as we move forward. And so hopefully we can expand that partnership.
Yeah, I think that's great. It was more the question for you, Vicki, that was really like, as you think of a location, maybe we can all start figuring out how to make sure that the community right around the immediate location is supportive, just simultaneously as you build this up.
Oh, I do drive around town and look at those banks, and I look at the Masonic Hall and those places that are privately owned. But if any of them wants to give us a building, we would certainly,
right,
welcome
and
them.
I think, yeah, definitely. And I think that the city's planning and interest in building a parking and incorporating a theater building into that, we're fully supportive of those ideas and the plans that they have currently. I think are strong, and that ultimately can really benefit the downtown, both from a downtown park issue, from a parking issue, but then engaging it with a kind of anchor institution that supports that. We're fully interested in a kind of indoor-outdoor organization that can activate a park, not only with kind of paid and programming inside the building, but community access, free programming that take place in a community park there. So
Great.
We all think it's great.
Great. Well, thank you once again, Vicki and Gary, for the great discussion today. Very informative. We look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.